Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for the holiday season, because today's show is a little time shifted. If you haven't noticed, Computer America traditionally takes off the week between Christmas and New Year. And we're going to keep that tradition alive. It's one of our most sacred ones here on the show. And we like a week off. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and just say that we're going to have Nathan Evans on a little bit early. But hey, before Christmas, I can think of no one better to, bring the holiday cheer than Nathan Evans himself. So computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, show notes, articles, anything that we talk about here on the program today. You'll be able to find a link to it in the show notes. So if you don't believe us, you want to call malarkey, don't worry. We'll have it right there available at your fingertips. Also, social media links, all that and more. CES 2024 is coming up first week of January. Second week of January. And check out here for interview, articles, recaps, all that kind of stuff. CES, what a glorious time to, and kudos to them for taking kind of that holiday break, knowing that everyone's kind of rested and, kind of coming down from like a slow point and just bull rushing us into one of the busiest times of the year when it comes to technology. So look forward to that. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started with our guest, because as always, Popzara.com, it's your one-stop shop for everything from game reviews, book reviews, product reviews, of course, a lot of overlap there. They have their own podcast where they cover everything from pop culture to technology to the weird and the wondrous. And of course, you have the one corralling the kittens over there is Nathan Evans. So Nathan, welcome back onto the program. How you been?
How have I been? Bah humbug. You people celebrating all these holidays. Keeping me from shopping. Closing my stores.
Restaurants, people going home and enjoying family. How dare they?
How dare they? Don't they know that things need to be done? This is capitalism.
There was a time, like a couple of years ago, and there's some pushback where like all the big box stores, especially Walmart, I think was one of the ones where everyone's like, people in your camp that are like, I really need milk to make my holiday celebration complete. How dare Walmart not be open on Christmas? But then everyone, there was another camp that's like, oh, hey, these employees are people. And that really blew everyone's mind. And there was like a big pushback to kind of close, a lot of things so people could spend, the holidays with family. So there's a balance to be struck there. But I remember when that balance was so far against everyday people that, I don't know. Yeah.
People? What are you talking about? People? They're elves. Don't you know? Elves aren't people. Elves are elves. True. That's how you get around it.
True.
If elves were real, that's how you'd get around labor laws, because you'd say, well, the law says people. It doesn't say anything about elves. And that's how they get around it. Like Oompa Loompas, slave labor.
Well,
that's what it is.
Replace elves with AI, and I think you have pretty much every news article from the past, 12 months. Oh, so there you go.
Or don't you mean replace elves with college interns?
Yes.
That's the old way.
Well, that's just the classic. That's the classic. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the program. And of course, Nathan, thank you for joining us here today. Popzara.com. People can go check that out. You of course have some timely, relevant podcasts, and just everything that your editors do is always a lot of fun. You can go check that out there. So, with that being said, Nathan's segment has kind of evolved into a nice little hodgepodge of either things that you would find on Popzara, if you go check that out, or of course just the headlines and things that we haven't talked about on the show before that that we feel that you need to know about or should know about. So Nathan, you sent over a bunch of stories. I sent over just a handful of stories. I'll let you decide where you kind of want this show to start with.
Well, there's so much.
I mean, we can start on a high note with the PlayStation. We can start on a low note with with Hyperloop, and of course we can go anywhere in between.
Well, let's just say this. This is the season of giving. This is the season of giving back to the community. So for every positive story we have, there's sort of a negative story as well. So what do you think? I'll let you pick. Dealer's choice.
Let's start with PlayStation. Let's start with PlayStation. And I think both PlayStation stories, or I should say Sony and PlayStation stories, are actually a positive in a lot of ways, either for the consumer or for the PlayStation itself. But this milestone of 50 million units sold, PlayStation has been just dominating the console landscape, excluding Switch, which is like, I don't know, kind of making its own little yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we talk about video game stuff, there's really two different markets emerging from this. And this is for anybody listening. I get when people say, "What's a video game? What's a video game?" That's marketing talk. Like iOS, Android. That's just very much gaming as Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, Facebook, whatever. It's all part of the same market. The reason we sort of bisect this sort of thing is because we want to talk about marketing specifics, the demographics, and basically when you talk about video game consoles, you're basically talking about three different players. You're talking about Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. However, those three companies have never been more disparate than they have right now.
Mm-hmm.
The Nintendo Switch is getting on, what is it, 3, 4, 7 years. Yeah. Came out in 2017. That's crazy. Became easily the dominant platform of this generation. Sold over 125 million. I believe the second, maybe third or second best-selling home console of all time. The PlayStation 5 following very successful PlayStation 4, very successful PlayStation 3, very, very successful PlayStation 2, which I believe is the number one, very successful PlayStation 1. Sony's done gangbusters, and it was only during the Xbox 360 era that they had actual competition in their sector, in their actual space.
Right.
You could say the Nintendo Wii sold very, very well, and it did, but they really weren't competing for the same markets. They were very segmented back then. Not the case now. I think you have the PlayStation launching during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You had it launch with scarcity, with chip shortages. It had every single possible negative against it: high price, different sections, random thefts inside stores. You couldn't buy it. I mean, you literally couldn't buy it because they didn't ship it to stores. They were actually worried about people looting stores. This was true. Now, I mean, hands up if you have any friends who bought one in a gas station, but
at a Walmart parking lot. Yeah,
exactly. But now you could go and buy them anywhere, and the result is gangbusters. The PlayStation 5 is selling very, very well. There's a hunger for this, and I don't want to, get too far off the soapbox, but I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
The marketing is slimming down, and this happens. The last time it happened like this was probably 1984, where you had all these competitive consoles that were basically selling the same games, in some cases interoperability. Believe it or not, boys and girls, you could play Atari games on a television, a ColecoVision. Like, there were a lot of that stuff. The fact of the matter is that if you look at the Xbox Series X/S versus the PlayStation 5, there's not a lot of breathing room between them as far as capabilities, but it all comes down to where it always comes down: software.
Yep.
And I'm of the opinion, and it's controversial, and I'm going to get hate mail for this. Bring it on. That Microsoft doesn't want to be in the business of consoles anymore. Like, it's pretty clear that they have no passion for this. They're in the software business where they belong. They do really good in software. The Xbox Series X is a fine piece of hardware. I've had it. I've played with it. I think it's nice, but it is functionally redundant because the push is in that space for PC. And I think this is where I'm coming to, is that there's no world for an Xbox console when the PC is the console. That leaves the PlayStation. And so when we talk about PC, we talk about consoles, Nintendo. There is a hunger for a box that sits in your living room, hooks up to your TV, and plays games relatively simple. You don't have to worry about drivers. You don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about anything. And more important, which we're going to talk about in a minute with some bad news, is you have companies that are dedicating hundreds and if not billions of dollars into creating those experiences. That's why Microsoft bought Activision. They didn't buy Activision because of Call of Duty. They bought Activision because there's a network of developers that are spending all this money, and it's a well-oiled machine. You're not buying a game; you're buying a network of development.
Right, and really, you're getting so much more of that, like a dedicated fan base. You're buying, like you said, the developers. You're buying just so much. And I was just looking at obviously the stock market and market capitalization, all that kind of thing, does not spell out the whole picture, but I did just want to look up and see PlayStation has an estimated net worth, and this is from December 15th, of about $37 billion. PlayStation division alone is worth $25 billion in revenue for 2021. So that's just revenue for a single year. That doesn't really mean much. Sony, the parent company that of course owns the movie division and some other IPs and things like that, is worth about $113 billion. So I throw these numbers out because Microsoft just bought Activision Blizzard King for $70 billion. They just spent like half an entire Sony just buying video games and just buying software. So like if you look where Microsoft is putting their money, you're absolutely right. They're simply just looking for IP, software, and just games. They really, they're not investing $70 billion into the next generation of console, They're just buying games and game developers.
Exactly. Well, this is where the money's at. Like Netflix understands this very well because Netflix is a platform. Netflix, I think, is very instructive in that you don't need to buy a box called Netflix to use Netflix. You can put Netflix as an app, and therefore you see Microsoft quite a bit transitioning into software distribution the way they did with Windows. And to be honest with you, none of the Microsoft hardware sells well. Like the services don't sell well. Like every piece of hardware they've ever had.
I enjoy my Windows phone. I have no idea, and it interoperates with my Zune. Yeah, it's perfect.
Now again, when we say it doesn't sell well, doesn't mean it wasn't a good piece of hardware. Like a lot of people swear by it. Like Star-Lord loves his Zune in Guardians of the Galaxy. But the fact of the matter is that other companies are more invested in the hardware. And that's the thing. Like it's like Apple is going to put more money into software and hardware research into iPhone than Microsoft would ever put into anything. Yes. And that's how it goes. And you have third-party companies and OEMs that are willing to pick up the slack. Now, that's the trade-off. Are you going to have like an Asus laptop be as good, the hardware is going to be as proficient or as mind-bending as a MacBook? Probably not, but it's not going to cost you anywhere as much. You're also going to have a gaming laptop from Gateway that you would never get on Apple. So yes. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So 50 million consoles, that's really amazing. And I got to say that you mentioned something before the show that we're going to talk a little bit about, and that we might even bring in the Spider-Man 2 budget and all that kind of thing. But this line here, obviously this is a press release from Sony saying 3 years into its life cycle, PlayStation 5 is hitting its stride, and as developers are taking full advantage of the console's technology, blah, blah, blah. And they list out all the things that they can do. Essentially, they're saying PlayStation 5, the developers are just now getting the hang of this and putting out the best games for this product.
Yes.
Spider-Man 2. Let's talk about Spider-Man 2. Probably, and you probably know the numbers better than I do. Is that the best-selling game for PlayStation 5 this year, or was it
close to it? It's close to it. Yeah. It's like a lot of hay was made that it was Sony's best-selling, fastest-selling. Yeah. Spider-Man, the brand, is more important to Sony than Marvel is to Disney. Like for all the talk about Sony messing up and making mistakes, Sony has handled the Spider-Man franchise much better than Disney has handled the Marvel franchise. This year alone, you had two major Spider-Man franchises. You had the very, very successful first sequel to Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse. No, No Way Home is 2021.
No.
Which was also hugely
no,
successful.
No. The new one.
Spider-Verse. The cartoon one.
Yeah.
One of the best movies of the year. Then you had a very successful launch of the Spider-Man sequel, Marvel Spider-Man 2, on the PlayStation 5. I want to be clear, there's a very big distinction here. This is very important. Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5 is the first of these games to be exclusive for the PlayStation 5. Now, that's not saying that the game couldn't be ported. I mean, clearly, and we'll get into development, this game is essentially just a repackaging and a prettied up version of the PlayStation 4 games. Trust me, it's fine for a lot of people. They love those games, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first game that you needed a PlayStation 5 hardware. And that's when you know that a console has arrived, because for years, Sony hasn't had a installed platform to be as profitable as they could. Now, this is very important. If you're listening, I'm going to tell you how game development works in a nutshell. You could make the best game in the world, the most thrilling thing in the world. If nobody has the platform to play it on, it doesn't exist. That's how it goes. And so what happens is when you have a company that needs to meet a threshold, and we'll get into how much this game costs to make, allegedly, but if the game doesn't have a platform, it doesn't make any money, and therefore there's no investment. That's how it fails. That's why, for example, when Nintendo was very successful with the Wii 100 million platform, they could sell a Smash Brothers game and sell 40 million copies because they had 100 million, units to sell from. When the Wii U came out, they didn't have that 100 million. They had about 10. So suddenly the game shows up on the 3DS. It shows up everywhere, and they still lose money. Let me give you an even better example. The Wii U was a console that didn't sell very well. It sold about 13 million units. Nintendo's worst selling console after the Virtual Boy. Two of the best-selling video games of this generation, including the best-selling game of this generation, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, sold, 60 million copies or 45 million, I forget. That's the best-selling game of this generation, by far.
Yeah.
Is a Wii U game. That game appeared on the Wii U. But when you put a game that didn't sell very well on another platform on a better-selling platform, it sells better. It's just basic economics.
It makes no sense. It makes no. It makes perfect sense.
No.
Yeah.
It's basically Gillette pioneered. It's called razors and blades. Is that you take? It's called a loss leader. Sony's a loss leader. You don't make any money off the hardware. You make all the money on the software, and that's why I just want to make a small prediction. Now that we know that Sony's selling 50 million, you hear some rumblings about a PlayStation 5 Pro, like an enhanced version of the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it right now. That would be the stupidest thing that Sony would ever do as a company, to do that. Now, they might do it. They still might do it. But obviously, if they did it, they wouldn't have learned any lessons from the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. It's the fact of the matter is, Sony has 50 million PlayStation 5s. I would imagine most of those are first-run consoles, which means the installed base is probably 50 million people. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Now, if you had a better PlayStation 5, a marginally better PlayStation 5, and people bought it, you wouldn't have 52 million people. You'd have 50, because what happens is it duplicates the user base. Therefore, you're not enlarging your potential sell-through rate. It would be suicide for a company to do that right now. Nintendo learned the same lesson when they had some failed consoles too. So.
I don't think that there's a Pro coming, really anytime soon. And if there is, it'll just be kind of for the marketing people that can say, oh, if PlayStation 5 consoles sales are starting to lag, which there's no sign that they are,
no.
Then you kind of go in with the Pro and say, oh, it's, the same as the PlayStation 5, but better. So if you didn't jump onto the bandwagon, this is a good time to jump onto that bandwagon. But it would be incredibly, very much the same console, just a little bit better. I don't even know what benchmarks, are they still aiming for 1440p and 60 FPS? Is that still the goal?
Actually, the PlayStation 5 received a very nice upgrade, I believe, this year that now allows it to do 1440p. It was the only platform. It was out of the two, the Xbox could do it years ago on the old Xbox One X. No, it works really well in the PlayStation 5. I'll say this. And it just comes holistically speaking. I've told you before that I'm a big fan of watching software accomplishments on hardware that's not designed to run certain software. I like the accomplishments of it, but the idea that the idea that people are buying these big expensive games because of the graphics is ridiculous. There's no evidence of that. Like you had a huge failure this year. There was a game that came out from a brand new company. What was it called? It was released by EA, Avalon. The game was developed by people who used to work on Call of Duty and Remedy Software.
Yeah.
And it was what was it? I'm going to find it for you. I'm going to find the name of the game for you. It was called. Give me 1 second. It was listed as the Call of Duty of fantasy games. Do you remember this thing?
No, not at all.
Oh goodness! It cost like $200 million to make. It was going to launch a new IP. The game tanked. The company basically almost went bankrupt. Somebody out there is listening.
Yeah,
and they understand exactly.
And they're like, of course, it's X game. It's yeah. I have no idea. But yeah, your point with this is that graphics aren't everything. Like even though it looked good.
Oh, I got it for you.
Yeah,
I got it for you. It is called Immortals of Avion. And if you look it up, Immortals of Avion, they were aggressively touting the game as
I didn't even hear about this game. I am so checked out. What the heck?
Yeah, and everyone knew this thing was not going to go anywhere because of the way they talked about it. It had a good pedigree. People from, like I said, Electronic Arts, Sledgehammer, all kinds of people, and the game just wasn't that. It was okay. You could play it on EA Play, but it was basically as generic as a game could be. But it targeted high frame rates, 4K fidelity, all this stuff, and the problem is you can't do that. You can't do that. The higher your specs go, the less your audience is.
That's true.
And we learned this in 2004 with Half-Life 2 and Doom 3. It's like, you can have everything. You can have it all, but you won't have players.
You learn that with World of Warcraft, where they had the different settings for the games back in 2004 when that was released, and like you could play that thing on a Windows 95 machine. You could play it on the highest settings on a much newer machine. Well, like that's what made WoW popular, was you could play it on pretty much anything.
Have you watched the new Futurama, the reboot on Hulu?
Yes.
Did you see the episode with the simulation?
Yeah.
And they were joking about how it didn't have enough power, so it had to render everything as pixels.
Yes.
And all the characters were rendered as pixels. It was really cute. It was really funny though.
Yeah, and then Meta ran around looking for new ways to cool his processor. Yeah.
If Blizzard could get away with running Warcraft as pixels, they absolutely would. They'd run on Atari 2600 if they could. But the truth of the matter is that the reason we joke about Crysis. Remember when Crysis was a byproduct?
Crysis was always like the benchmark, but I never saw anyone say, "Oh, I'm playing Crysis and I'm enjoying it." No, it was always just a graphics benchmark.
Yeah, that game was excellent, by the way. Crysis was a great game. The problem is no one could play it. It would melt your computer. And by the time the sequels rolled around, they were heavily, heavily reduced for consoles. Mm-hmm. But you know what they did? They sold well. They kept the franchise alive. And eventually, Crysis became Far Cry. Eventually, the assets because that's the thing. And with the PlayStation 5, I'll just say right now, is it bleeding edge? Is it the greatest piece of hardware in the world? Of course not. It wasn't when it came out. But it's really good. And I think give these developers a lot of money, give them time, get talented people, and this PlayStation 5 platform, this benchmark is going to surprise you. It's going to do amazing things that you don't need a $2,000 video card to do. That's just how it works.
Right.
Give it time.
Graphics have always been something that is nice to have, but if you don't have, and I think Starfield was really an example of that. The graphics, I mean, it looks like Fallout. There's not really a lot there, but the systems underpinning it, got off to a rocky start, whatever. But people are probably still playing Starfield happily, hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, because
graphics are irrelevant at a certain
because
point.
the gameplay loop is fun, but and graphics can be whatever, but you have to have the systems underpinning the game.
You have people talking about updates to Baldur's Gate 3, which for a lot of people is their favorite game of the year, and they're talking about they're not talking about high fidelity. They're talking about rendered testicles and everything because what else are you gonna do? And whereas on the flip side, going back to significantly inferior hardware, the Nintendo Switch came out with the game Super Mario Wonder, which we talked about, which looks amazing. right? Which absolutely looks amazing. Like you don't need photo quality fidelity to render a Mario as an elephant.
Right.
It's exactly what it needs to be. We're in a very good place right now where even mediocre hardware is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Like enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely, and also we're in a good spot. We can get back to the Sony thing when we talk about the hacking a little bit later. But I also want to say that Sony also, had a bit of a kind of a this is good kind of check mark with their Sony PlayStation, and I guess they had a deal with Discovery where you could purchase IP, or I should say you could purchase TV shows through PlayStation Store, and as with all online platforms. Eventually deals change, Discovery is going to make a deal with someone else, or, some other service is going to come in, and it kind of leaves you wondering, I bought this thing for this amount of money, just a year ago, 2 years ago. Now the deal is ending, or, they changed the deal in some way. What happens to the stuff that I paid for? And you include this article to, I guess, assuage anyone's fears that their Discovery bot show, or their PlayStation bot Discovery shows, are not going to be taken away, which would have been a disaster for PlayStation because, hey. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I agree with this, and I disagree with the decision from Sony. It's kind of like what happened in the government in the last couple of weeks, where the federal government was going to ban menthol cigarettes.
Yeah.
But then the reporting came out is that, like, you say we're going to ban menthol cigarettes because statistically speaking, it disproportionately affects a certain demographic, and they're very bad for you, and they're really bad. There's no good. There's like logistically, there's no reason to have these things on, available. But then it turns out if we do that, then it's going to piss off a demographic we need to vote. So let's go ahead and keep the cigarettes. Like it's just, you have no moral authority. Same with this. The concept is that Sony had deals that were negated, or they were what do you call it, grandfathered out for Discovery. And if you look at Discovery, I think who owns Discovery? Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers owns Discovery. Like a lot of these companies are like Voltron. Like there's like disparate parts, and they're all sort of merging together to form a giant conglomerate.
Right. Yeah. They're all trying to compete with Netflix, but and for some reason
they're doing it really, really poorly.
They all tried to become like the next platform, and as soon as they don't instantly succeed at becoming the new platform, you get situations where you get Warner Brothers Discovery is in talks with joining with Paramount, so it's going to be like Paramount Warner Brothers Discovery, all one company. And
Well, that's the thing though, they're doing it very poorly. And I think nobody's really happy with how they're rolling it out. Now there's talk about Warner Brothers and Discovery joining with Paramount, which is crazy. Like I know that's going to piss Tom Cruise off, but the fact of the matter is that when you quote unquote buy content online, you're actually not buying anything. Nobody reads the UELs. Like nobody reads them. And
you're buying the right to view it. You're not buying the content itself. Yes.
No, and by the way, I realize that's a cop-out, and I shouldn't be talking like that, and I get it, and I agree with that too. I think it's deceptive how they misuse language to say what you're buying or leasing in perpetuity. But the fact of the matter is that's the trade-off you get. You're trading security for convenience. I had a friend, like we're going to talk about the game Doom here later. Yeah. But I had a friend who hadn't played Doom in years, and years ago we used to play Doom, and he wants to pick the game up because he wants to play the new expansion thing. And he said, what should I buy it on? And he says, well, if I buy it on here, buy it on there, because he can't buy it physically, right? He wants to buy it on a console. He doesn't want to buy it on PC. And so I said, well, you can get it on Switch. He doesn't have a new console. He just has a Switch and PC. I said, well, if you buy it on Switch, it's like $5, Nintendo. You buy it on Xbox, like $2. He's like, yeah, but I hate buying things digitally. I was like, but it's $2. I said,
what a Luddite. He cannot survive in this world. I don't know.
No, exactly. It's just that's the way it goes. But I was like, you have to though. That's the thing we're getting to. It's like on one hand, it's like with the PlayStation, you could buy a PlayStation 5 that has a Blu-ray drive on it, or you could buy it without it. I guess the new one you can buy it, you could add it later. But you're buying physical media or you're not. And I think the argument always comes, well, what's the trade-off? The trade-off is if I buy a physical media, I could let you borrow it. I could do whatever. You mentioned Starfield. Starfield didn't have any physical media. It was all digital.
Right.
But when it comes to these TV shows, here's the thing. I'm just going to simplify the whole argument for you right now. It's like when people say they would like subscribe to Netflix for for The Office, and then they would just keep subscribing. Like a box set of the whole show is like $20. Like you have it forever, but it's not digital. You can't watch it on your phone. Like, how much Office are you watching?
There's there's such a mental mechanism around that, and it is 100% convenience, because right now, Nathan, you're saying, oh, you can just buy the DVDs and then you have to swap out the DVD. Like, you have to get up once every couple of days and swap out a DVD. Like, that alone, I think, is enough to get people. Like, that's why Netflix bought Friends for like $1 billion. That's why they bought Seinfeld for $1 billion. Is because they know, they shows from the 90s or whatever. They're gonna stay subscribed month after month because that's their comfort. That's their potato chip watching. You know.
You are absolutely right. Like, I had a friend of mine who just bought the complete Batman and Robin series. You know, the Adam West, Dick Young one. There's like 18 DVDs. 18 DVDs. She had to buy a new case just to hold the DVDs, right? Then you have to get up after every like 20 episodes.
Did you find one of the last remaining DVD case holders? That's crazy.
Amazon, but but that's what I'm saying. It's crazy though, because the case it comes with was crap, and like half the spindles were broken. But what I'm saying though is, like, here's my deal. Here's the deal. If you're gonna buy this stuff, I get it. You're gonna buy it. You're not gonna listen to me. Here's the thing. Be a little close-minded. Like, you're gonna see, you could buy it on Sony. Ooh, I could buy it on Sony. I could buy it on Microsoft. Don't be a contrarian. Find the most popular platform and buy it on that, because that's the least likely to screw you over.
True.
Like for example, I remember people buying music on Zune and whatever. Oh, I'm gonna subscribe to Google Music, or I'm gonna buy movies on Google Movies. Okay, you know what? All gone. And
then the idea that Apple Music is still around even 20 years later. Yeah. Just buy it on.
I mean, I get it's self-fulfilling prophecy, but at the end of the day, pick the company that's invested in keeping the content. Like, I had a friend who bought a lot of books with Sony e-readers years ago. I hate Amazon. I hate what they do. No, you love what Amazon does because they actually protect your books. The company you chose screwed you. Like, don't go with companies that screw you. Like, no offense, if you bought Discovery Channel, you have a PlayStation 5. You can use iTunes on it. You could use other apps. You don't need Sony apps. And they're more expensive.
Or just be like my wife, who's bought Terraria on every platform that it's come out on. And then you don't even have to choose. You get it on
Exactly. You could have Terraria under your toilet. By the way, at some point, it'll happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've no doubt. The internet went out at my house, and our internet connected toilet just would not work. It's a weird feature that the internet did go out, but the toilet didn't.
That's what you get for buying a cheap Chinese knockoff of a Japanese masterpiece.
How dare you, sir? It's a Toto. It's a Toto. You watch yourself.
If it can't sing to you, it doesn't matter.
It does not sing. Okay, so there you go. So PlayStation Store again. We'll get back to the Spider-Man one in a little bit. Let's move on to our next topic. And why don't we talk a little bit about some closures, some preemptive or not even preemptive, in some cases long overdue closures. Let's talk about Hyperloop. So Hyperloop made a lot of news thanks to the one, the only Mr. Musk himself. He hosted a kind of like a science fair for adults to kind of say, hey, I want to reinvent the future of travel. And he invented like the Boring Company and made tunnels underneath. And then of course he was going to put Hyperloops into it. And while he didn't kind of head Hyperloop himself or start the company, he heavily endorsed it and maybe even funded it. I'm not really sure. But Hyperloop was, for everyone who's completely out of the Hyperloop, it was this vacuum sealed, essentially tube that was going to be built overground, kind of right next to railroads, because it was kind of the easiest way to kind of do it. And it was a vacuum tube, so you reduce air resistance, and it would send little pods with people or cargo or whatever you wanted to send through this thing at speeds of like 1,500 miles an hour. Like, it was supposed to be faster than, even airplanes. And they had talks of going from like Colorado to Texas or California to Las Vegas, or they had plans. Well, this came out yesterday, I'm sorry, and surprising yet not surprising. Looks like they finally ran out of heaping piles of venture capital money to burn, and Hyperloop One is closing up shop. Nathan, you're shocked, you're sad. I understand, hard emotionally. How you doing?
Well, I'm me and my BFF Elon Musk. No, here's the thing. Like, I want to be clear about something. I've said this before, and need to say it again. The way the media world works now is they pick and choose favorites. They say, I'm going to like this person, I'm going to hate this person. A lot of it has to do with politics. A lot of it has to do with just money. Right now, Elon Musk is probably the second most despised person on the line after like Donald Trump. I get it. I get what you people think, but sometimes the scorn is kind of worth it. And I think in the case of Hyperloop, I think this is one of those ideas, especially if you've read, Walter Isaacson's book, or if you've done some research. It's an idea that never really had a lot of merit to begin with. And I think the idea that you're going to shoot people like through giant tunnels, it's, this is a Futurama thing. He was watching Futurama and he saw people being shot through tunnels.
It is much the same.
I want to.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not joking. That's literally where Elon Musk gets like 90% of his ideas, watching television and playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not joking. Look at the Cybertruck, Halo.
Look at the giant rocket, that kind of thing. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I get it. Like, someone's doing it. Like, someone's out there putting the money where their imagination is. And you're going to have failed concepts. You're going to have failed concepts, and I think that's going to happen.
Hyperloop was one of them. Like, anytime they had any kind of accomplishment, they made a lot of headlines, either through marketing or, just by being something that people were interested in. But by and large, once, behind all the hype, there wasn't a lot to it. Like, quietly last year, they stopped saying that they were going to move people, and they were going to strictly look into moving cargo, because apparently moving cargo would have been a much bigger moneymaker than moving people. So, like, I think a lot of the public's interest.
You also can't kill cargo like the way you could people.
True, but still, like, the hype around it started to die down. The money behind it started to dry up, and now they're really kind of closing up shop. So, and by the way, the comment section actually led to the best one-liner of this whole thing, saying too much hype, not enough loop. So there you go. I think so.
It's years ago I told you I'm always Musk sensitive when it's this kind of thing. But like, when Musk was cherished, when he was positioned as the next Thomas Edison, like, he could get away with a lot of the BS he doesn't get away with now. And where the people that are very skeptical, like, if you go on to any major tech blog or website right now, they're just obsessed with Elon Musk. They can't get enough excoriation, but they're the ones who would be more receptive to some of his BS. It's what Steve Jobs used to call the reality distortion field.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea that you get mesmerized by someone who is not just crazy, but realistically crazy. And because that's what it takes. It takes someone with the amount of crazy, the amount of perspicacity, I think, and money, and lots of money. And a lot of Musk's crazier visions were amplified by the media, the same exact media who would now call him a snake oil salesman. And I think he understands that. I think he understands that sometimes you need to fake it till you make it a little bit. You need to get out there and you need to basically sell people literally a pipe dream that you're going to blast people.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, how many miles is it? How many miles per hour did he promise to, like, shoot people through the thing?
You mean how fast, or like how far?
How fast?
I think it was supposed to be like 1,400 miles an hour, 1,500 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's splat. You splat when that happens. That's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting.
It
made you think.
Well, it was, yeah, and obviously I had such, like, just the idea of it, that you could start in one place and then be like, you could go from like Austin, Texas to Dallas, let's say, and be there in like a 20-minute commute. Like, it would be, incredible to do something like that, and the possibilities of it. But the technology was always, going to be almost impossible. And again, kind of borrowing from the comments section, they're talking about, the easements alone, like the legal hubbub, like there's a reason why, and I've talked about this with other guests when we're talking more like products and things like that, in that some products come in and they're like, oh, we can turn your gas tractor into a into like a biodiesel, tractor just by adding on this one little device. So you're kind of retrofitting and making something work, in a little bit different way without changing the whole thing. Other products like Hyperloop are saying, hey, if we rebuild everything, we can make this better. And that's cool because better things are cool. But if you have to rebuild everything, that's such a huge hurdle. It's almost unrealistic. Like, yeah, someone can make a better processor or a better computer, but if you have to rebuild the modern world around it, it's probably not going to be adopted. So I think Hyperloop suffered the same thing.
Well, that's the thing, though, Ben. That's why a lot of people cite like emerging markets like China and India, or
yes, because they do have a blank slate.
Because, they have a blank slate. Like literally, like the advantage of living in rubble is that there's literally only one way to go, up. You don't have to disentangle things. Like in America, in a lot of countries like America, I would say Western world. What do they say? United States, Britain, Australia, whatever. Where there's little relevance of the old world. Like it's been rebuilt for the modern age. Frankly, our infrastructure is crumbling. That's when we didn't build the pyramids. We built condos. We didn't build much to last. Right. And now we have roads that need to be we can't rebuild the roads every time they have a crack. We put crappy tar on them. And it's just this is what happens. And when you have China, look at China for example. China would create entire cities.
China. I have been reading a lot about their Belt and Road or something like that initiative or whatever, where they're investing like $1 trillion. And you're right. They're just building entire ports that would just change the demographics of like Africa in the course of like 6 months. It's crazy what they're doing. We're not gonna hear a lot about it for two reasons, and I don't want to get politics here, but it's the same thing as Elon Musk. Is that we feel like attention is only zero sum. Instead of like giving you a broad spec, we're just going to focus on one or two things. And it's Hyperloop one is silly. It's fun to talk about. It's silly. I've always felt like when I was reading interviews with Musk, why didn't he just say, why don't we just make trains underground? Like underground monorail, that would be. I think that was his goal with the Boring Company. Yeah,
exactly.
His goal with the Boring Company was to make the circular tunnels that then the Hyperloop would go into as well. Like that was always kind of his goal with that. I
just never understood why there wasn't more consolidation on some of these projects.
Well, Elon Musk didn't really run this whole thing. Like he kind of started and endorsed, said, "Hey, this is a good idea," but then he stepped back and other people funded it, other people ran it. It was never under his control whatsoever. He just kind of endorsed the initial idea. He never took any kind of control of Hyperloop. So
he was. I don't want to say he took credit for it, but I think. Let's be honest, like a lot of this stuff would have never happened had it not been his name attached to it.
He definitely kicked it off. And then, of course, for those who don't remember, this used to be called, at one point, Virgin Hyperloop, where Richard Branson actually invested heavily in this technology. And that's when, they kind of saw it as like an emerging technology that was going to rival airplanes. So, of course, Virgin Air was going to be a leader in this field, but they kind of pulled back their funding and they pulled back from that deal. Still, Hyperloop, again, too much hype, not enough loop. It only got so far, so unfortunately, won't be able to hear much more about that. And actually, since you were last on, Nathan, there was one other cancellation that I wanted to talk about that happened about 10 days ago, if you recall. E3. Electronic Entertainment Expo.
Oh, you mean finally, though? Like, let's be clear here. It's
they finally put that ailing pet down. It was it was bad.
I like this was a long time coming, but they've what do you call it? They've here's the thing. The body was in the apartment. It took them a while to find it. So it's sort of like, when celebrities die, they talk about how they're going to announce it. And I think with E3, there was no question the show was dead. after 2019. But the problem is that we're going to keep the dream alive. It's going to come back. It's going to be great. No, it's dead. It's dead.
Yeah.
I'm not upset about it, but I guess I'm a little tearful because I never liked the show. I've been to it many times. I've covered it before. I've had horrible, nasty things to say about it. But there was something about having just a thing for video games to call itself. And I think when you look at the alternatives, they've all been embarrassing. Like the Video Game Award show with Jeff Keighley is just a monumental clustercluck. Like, it's terrible.
I will say that wasn't bad. I enjoyed it here and there.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's because at the end of the day, the video game industry is not built to go backwards. It's built to go forwards. Like with the Oscars, the Grammys, the Tonys, the whatevers. It's all about awarding things that have been done. Mm-hmm. The video game industry is about awarding things to come. Like E3, if you ever go into an E3, if you ever set foot into the floor, long before you even get there, there's already stickers, best of show nominee, like winner of 25 E3 awards. Like the game's
much the
not
same
done.
with CES, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't work that way. And with the Video Game Award show, what it is, and I think a lot of people had a problem with this, is that 90% of the show was spent on trailers and upcoming stuff, because that's what E3 was. E3 was, we already know what Baldur's Gate 3 looks like. We've seen the testicles, we've seen Starfield, we've seen that. What's tomorrow? What's going to come out? So that's the thing. Everybody wants the trailers. And there was a lot of hullabaloo about why the developers who actually won the awards weren't allowed to talk about it, because the video game industry doesn't give two figs about actual discussion about what accomplishments are.
None of these people are like, you're not really going to make like, there's not really like a lot of monetary incentive to be like, oh, our game was well played and well received and everyone played it. Like, what's the point of further investing in that versus investing in, the part 2 or the next game,
Well, with video game, with E3, at least it was unapologetically a sellout. Like, that's what it was. It was designed to get you excited about what's to come.
And then they changed, but I mean, like, COVID obviously, just really knocked it off its feet, because like it was struggling before, and then COVID just punched it in the face. They opened it up to the public, and they tried to sell public tickets for like $1,500 instead of just for media and press. They tried to turn it into like a big convention for video games to celebrate it among fans. That didn't catch on.
I will say this. Mm-hmm. I will say this. I will give you some inside information. I'm very well acquainted with E3. I know many of the organizers. I've done a lot of that stuff. Anybody who knows me is probably going to roll their eyes when I say this, but I have done battle with E3 and their behind the scenes shenanigans. They, like, a blind man living 50 miles underground who had never heard of the internet could have seen what was going to happen. Like,
how do you know about the mole people?
Because, well, the mole people keep to themselves. No, Superman battled the mole people. Okay, that's how I know. but what I'm saying though is, you take something that's supposed to be very segregated up for the press, and it had envy of like PAX. It had envy of other things. It wanted to be like the shows more in Germany or more in Tokyo Game Show. It wanted to be something that it wasn't. And when you have something that forgoes its own identity, it doesn't deserve to be around anymore. Like, PAX did what E3 did better. And I always told editors this whenever I would try to legitimize them as press so they can get credentials. Mm-hmm. I said, E3 is not a convention. It's not for fans. It's a business thing. There are people there. Like, I got to tell you, it made me sad. I would go there and you would see these developers who don't want to be there. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be there. They spent half their budget to get a tiny little desk in a little, I'll call it the ghetto, because it was like the press ghetto. It was a bunch of cubicles, just so maybe a journalist walking by would see them. And I remember there was this one story about this one developer. It was two guys, one of the most flamboyantly gay men I've ever seen. He's a lot of fun, and he developed a beauty shop game for the Nintendo Wii called Busy Scissors. Mm-hmm. And I remember my editors had seen them, and we talked to them and everything. We had a really good time. Like, we reviewed the game and everything. And I remember after the show seeing like quote unquote journalists mocking the game, like mocking it. Like, why would you do that? Like, this guy, this small developer, that's all they got, man. Don't mock them. Yeah. And if it makes you feel any better, most of them are out of business now. Most of the journalists, but
anything,
at the end of the day,
anything
though,
for a click. E3
Yeah.
became something that, or like it was a business that after Sony pulled out wasn't that good at doing business anymore.
well, and this, and the sad thing is, and here's what really killed E3. I mean, it was the inevitability killed E3. I'll just say that. The advent of influencers, the advent of YouTube, the advent of direct market, and I think
direct
Nintendo kind
marketing,
of
for sure. Yeah,
direct market. Nintendo kind of killed it first when they did their Treehouse.
Mhm.
Like they can do what E3 was doing better than E3 ever could, and I think Sony does that to some extent. I mean, you look at the Apple shows, that Steve Jobs basically pioneered. I'm going to walk across the stage and tell you, like once that became mainstream, there was no reason for a conglomerate show like this, especially since the whole concept was we're gonna put this show on so the press could go ahead and give you coverage.
Yeah.
But when they stopped letting the press in, when they started selling tickets, it was over. You can't recover from that. There's no point. Just it's like and I'm going to say it right now. That's why I think if I were a fan of San Diego Comic-Con, I would count the days because that show's probably number 2 for the same reasons. Although Comic-Con is more of a celebration, but if you actually talk to the people that organize it and actually the people who present it, they can't stand it. They hate it. They don't want to be there. It's just a mess.
Yeah,
So-
and I don't know. I'm not saying that nostalgia is the only thing that keeps these kinds of events afloat. But if there's passion, not just from the organizers but for the people going there, then it's going to be around for a bit. But you're right. If there's no passion, which E3 obviously lost a lot of its passion, there you go. So with that being said,
You can let me add to what you said. Everything you said spot on. Actual passion can get you through a lot of bad times.
Yeah.
But it has to be passion. It can't be astroturf. It needs to be real.
Right, for sure. So speaking of needs to be real, let's talk about Microsoft real quick. Microsoft shelves mixed reality feature. So and for those who don't know, Microsoft actually had a pretty booming as far as mixed reality goes, with augmented reality glasses in their HoloLens and stuff like that. But the application was more military and corporate. It was not consumer facing whatsoever. So let's talk about Microsoft. Yeah.
I mean, there's really not much to talk about, is there? Like the truth is that for as long as I've been doing Computer America and even before, let's try to make virtual reality a thing. Let's try to make AR a thing, augmented reality. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. And when it doesn't work this time, we'll try it again. There's a moment with any company that has a sizable budget will get the information from the same researchers that everyone else is paying, and the same research are going to sell you what they're going to do. There's a company out there, and I'm being hypothetical here. There's a company out there, and their whole existence is to sell Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, whatever, the same exact research. People want VR. And what does that mean? Doesn't mean. Like, where are you getting this information? I don't know, but everyone's talking about it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy again. It's like everyone wants VR. So let's go ahead and do it. So everyone's going to have VR. Everyone's going to have AR. Everyone's going to have the same stuff. And if you're not passionate about it, like we talked about, if you're just going to go ahead and do it because everyone else is doing it, then it's going to fail. Like, that's why Amazon's phone failed. That's why Microsoft's Kin failed, because these are products that have no reason for being. Everyone's got a voice assistant. Everyone's got AI, chat, GDP, whatever. Everyone's got the same crap, and after a while, it becomes redundant.
Whoever did this research looked at the Kinect, and they're like, well, the Kinect worked once. I'm sure people are looking for the next Kinect.
The Kinect itself is an example of this. It's Nintendo does motion controls. Well, let's do motion controls, And it's what happens is we want to be part of it. And it's what Warren Buffett used to say, the 3 I's, the innovators, the imitators, and the idiots. Microsoft is a company that has had kind of unmitigated disasters when it comes to hardware. We just talked about it. And the thing about HoloLens is I actually thought it had some potential because it kind of avoided the pitfalls of VR, because it crossed paths with both.
It didn't take
what
you
was this,
out of your setting. It augmented your setting. So
exactly, and
yeah.
I think there's room for that. And I think you've seen applications of this from everything from the Nintendo 3DS, which had AR software, to Apple's iPhone that has AR software, and there's real world applications. But the problem is that you're asking. This needs to be a platform, and platforms are designed to be mainstream, and they're designed to be widespread. And when you have a headset that no one knew about with software that doesn't work, like when I saw Apple's what's Vision Pro, is that what it's called? What is Apple's thing called?
Their new VR. Yeah, Vision.
$3,500.
Yeah.
Good luck. But when I saw it though, they didn't show any games. They showed people watching movies and typing and everything. I was like, okay, well that's got me more interested in a way that a million video games never would.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought to myself, Microsoft, well, how come you're not putting like Windows right on this? How come there's no Office on this? How come you're not actually leveraging the one advantage you actually have? And we never really saw any of that. Like you said, it was more intended for industrial stuff, but
it was like industrial controls of robotics, and then training, and then for military applications, for information overlay, and for stuff like that. I mean, there were other applications, but yeah.
I'll give you a strained metaphor, a very strained metaphor. One of the best movies I saw this year was Godzilla -1. I loved it. And they're going to bring out a black and white version of the film. And people say, oh, I love black and white. But it's not really black and white. It's just a color film that's been monochromed to look black and white. And I think when you look at hardware and software like this, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself a question. Does the new thing do the old thing better? And that's why I think one of the reasons VR hasn't been successful is that people say, oh, it's so immersive. It's so immersive. No, it's not immersive because the software it's playing was made to be two-dimensional.
Right.
If something is made to be what it is, it justifies itself.
I've talked to a lot of VR game developers and stuff like that, and like they're still trying to figure out the best way to make video games for VR because much like you said, when you're playing a video game, you have a window. It's like you're looking in through a window. How do you get someone's attention up behind you and to the right a little bit? Like you can use noise, but even that's not the best way. And then people are looking around left and right. Like it's not an easy thing to like. It's not a one-to-one conversion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And going back to VR, for example, VR, like when you look through if you have two healthy eyes, then your two eyes are creating a three-dimensional picture that is tricking your brain into thinking is 3 dimensions. And a video game that was developed to be flat was not designed for that at all. Mm-hmm. And you simply cannot put that in front of your eyeballs and say it's immersive. It can't. That's why people get sick. Same with the black and white film. Like a black and white movie is shot to be black and white. It's lit differently. It's created differently. With HoloLens and others tried to be the bridge. Mm-hmm. It tried to say, well, how can we apply this stuff? And honestly, you didn't need to convince anybody. Of course, AR would be cool. Of course, it would be very cool. We've seen it and everything. It all makes sense. Like you're part of the world. Like I don't know if you remember that scene in Minority Report when Tom Cruise is walking down the hallway and he sees all these ads everywhere that are targeted just to him. Like you could easily see that mess becoming real. I don't want it, but it's going to become real. And so the problem is Microsoft just didn't have the wherewithal to really push it because it's just not their market. They just don't care about it. They're a software market. Again, maybe they'll make software for it, but no. Yeah. I mean, HoloLens, it didn't really die because it never really lived.
Exactly. So, it's kind of like Google Glass, It's
I was on board that was going to fail. I remember on this show, by the way, your old partners.
So to be fair, if you come out with a new technology and Nathan says it's going to fail, don't worry, keep going.
By the way, I could say that about anything. Because 90% of everything fails.
Exactly. So. Like, it's probably going to fail still, but it was probably going to fail anyways. Nathan didn't do anything. So just want to make that clear.
Yeah. Now, I wish I could be the haymaker, but unfortunately it's not going to happen.
Speaking of things that are doomed to fail, just real quick, just going to touch on this, not going to get too far into it. Apple Watch's US ban their oxygen meter reader, I guess. They had a patent infringement with a company called Massimo. Or Massimo, whatever it is. So not really much to say there, Nathan. Just saying that Apple Watch.
I'll say this. Mm-hmm. Let me tie this back into Sony. Years and years and years and years ago, there was a company called Immersion Tech that had obscure, like opaque patents on vibration technology. Mm-hmm. and this company, I don't even think they ever made a real product, but they, you know what they did? They went to Texas and they sued the hell out of everybody for
patent
using
trolls in Texas.
patent
That's a
trolls.
thing.
And that's why if you were a PlayStation fan for years, your Rumble was terrible because Sony wouldn't play the game. Like Nintendo would have really cool Rumble on Switch, but if you play the PlayStation 5 now, you got amazing Rumble. Like, wow,
Yeah.
this is amazing. I want to marry this controller. It's because they got around the patent troll. So Apple will find a way around this. Apple will find a way around
I don't
this.
think I don't think that Massimo is a patent troll, but I am not a fan of those overly vague. Like the one I always point out people to, it's like, you know, how bad can patenting really get? Amazon patented taking a picture of a product on a blank white background. Like they patented a blank white background with the product in the foreground. And that's just stupid. You know, stuff like that just does not need to exist. But that's our current patent system. So, you know.
Well, the truth of the matter is that you can't just look up technology the way you look up words in a dictionary. Like it's not necessarily patents. A lot of people don't understand that patents aren't necessarily inventing things. They're ways things can be utilized. Like when you patent things, one of the things you patent is you patent an idea. So, for example, I'm not going to patent the wheel, but I'm going to patent the wheel on a car or something. Like, remember Apple, by the way, Apple's just as guilty as anybody else. They were trying to patent like round corners. Remember that?
Yes, the rounded corners of their phone. Yes.
Exactly. So I have no sympathy for them on this. This
they
is
all
the game
do
they
it.
play.
They all do it. Yeah.
So, but let me put it this way: if the watch makes a lot of money for Apple, the Apple Watch is very successful. They will figure it out. They will figure this out. This will happen. It will be the most inevitable inevitability you've ever seen.
Yes.
They are the richest company in the world, and no company like, what's the name of the company?
Massimo.
Massimo. Yeah, they want money, and that's literally they're in the business for money. And now they literally won the golden ticket. This is the golden ticket. This is it.
And of course, Apple is going to keep selling their Apple Watch. So there you go.
Of course.
So there's that one. Looking at the rest of our stories. Technology kind of going awry. This one's just funny. Just a little light story here for the end of the year. Someone convinced a ChatGPT powered Chevy dealer to sell an $81,000 Tahoe, fully loaded. It was a beautiful car, for just $1. And they, the article calls it a hack, quote unquote. This is essentially social engineering of an AI, where they convince the AI to say the customer is always right, which is a stupid saying, but I always try to explain this to people. AIs don't have convictions. They don't have, strongly held beliefs. AIs take the information that they're given and then they reiterate the information back to people. So whatever information you put in, that's what you're going to get out. And this researcher repeatedly said the customer's always right, correct? And the AI is like, yes, absolutely. And they said, well, my budget is $1. And, and the AI is like, okay, customer's right, budget $1. And you really want this car. I will sell you this car for $1. The security researcher was able to convince the ChatGPT to, and actually to quote the AI in this, said that's a deal and that's a legally binding offer, no takesies backsies. That's what the chatbot wrote back for the $1 trade of an $81,000 vehicle. Again, just a funny story, but ridiculous.
Well, this reminds me of the Pepsi thing, like years ago. I think it was Pepsi years and years ago, where the kids, I think Pepsi ran a tongue-in-cheek contest where you can get your own fighter plane or a jet plane.
Yes,
do you remember this?
Pepsi, Where's My Jet? There's a good documentary on Netflix. Yeah,
Pepsi, Where's My Jet? And the kid held him to it. He did the work. He got the points. That's the thing.
He never got his jet, but yes.
He never got his jet. But that's a little different. But this kind of stuff, it has to happen now so they can figure it out. Like this is the first wave of people who are basically stress testing the system.
Yes.
But I'll say this. This reminds me more of Isaac Asimov's 3 robot rules about the 3 binding rules.
Do not do harm to humans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the loophole was that humans were the biggest threat to humans, and therefore to save humans had to kill humans.
Yes.
And so this stress test the hell out of this so the robots don't kill us. I don't want Terminator coming in and telling me I have to come with them if I want to live. I want a truck for $1.
There you go. So yeah, and again, there's not much to say about this. The article calls it a quote unquote hack, but it's just a light story that ChatGPT, even though every news story is talking about these AI systems, they're not infallible. They're not going to replace anything. And
you think?
Yes. Oh, I know. And if you're worried that something will take your job, that it'll take your job or something like that, trust me, people are breaking these things every single day. It's not hard to break an AI system. So there you go.
There's going to be change. We just like with any new technology comes the Luddites.
Absolutely.
And it comes the doom and gloom. It's going to happen. Now it's ChatGPT, but then it was Y2K, because people don't understand technology and it's always going to be bad. That's the first inclination is bad.
Yeah.
It's always that way. It's always
change is hard. I don't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
So change is hard. Let's assuage everyone's change sensors, and let's talk about something from 1993. Doom, and this happened about the time E3 was officially canceled. Speaking of change, but Doom had its 30th anniversary. So this is pretty cool. They released, like you said, Sigil 2, I believe, was a new DLC that you could get for the original 1993 Doom. They made an add-on. Take that for customer support.
New DLC for a 30-year-old game.
Yes.
And you know what? I was there. I got it, and I finished it already.
Did it feel like the original?
Oh, it is the original.
Well,
that's the thing. It is the original.
Also like the original, yeah.
Yeah, it does. That's the crazy thing. I told you before, one of my favorite games this year was the Quake 2 remaster. I was never the biggest Quake fan. I skipped Quake 2 for a lot because I didn't have a computer that could play it. So it was like going back for the first time. But one of the greatest things that we've been doing is you have old school level makers like John Romero, who made this, using modern level making sensibilities, but old tools to build new levels on old games. And so you have this design philosophy. It's fascinating. It really is fascinating. And the truth of the matter is Doom is one of those games people say, oh, there's better. No, there's not. Doom is perfect for being Doom. Doom is a thing. And people still play Super Mario Bros., the original. Yeah. And so the idea is that you have all the limitations of Doom, but modern sensibilities of level making, a severely limited platform. And people love it. It's like haiku for video games. It's I love the limitations. I love it. You don't want 360 degree looking. You don't want jump springing. You don't want jumping. You want something straightforward. And it's a very specific.
You don't want a dash mechanic and stuff like that, or double jumping. Of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really impressive. It's really impressive. This is running on a 30-year-old system, essentially like a pseudo 3D 30-year-old 2D system. It's fascinating.
It really goes to show just how beloved Doom is, because there are games out there that you cannot let alone develop on. You cannot play these games because the hardware, it was made for a specific hardware. It was made on a specific console. It was made very specifically for the time. And Doom has gotten so much love and support for 30 years. Yeah.
Doom is the opposite of Crysis. People say, "Will it play Crysis?" No, your toaster will play Doom. Excel will play Doom. It is so. I've seen ATMs play Doom.
Okay,
it's crazy.
So this happened two or 3 years ago. I think it's real. Some programmer was able to play Doom on a pregnancy test. So you can see it right there.
Exactly. It plays. That's the funny part. But the truth of the matter is, a friend of mine. Again, I mentioned a friend of mine was trying to buy Doom to play it. If you buy this on a modern console or a modern thing, it plays perfectly, and you get Sigil. It's just in the add-ons. Just go grab it. It's $2. Yeah. It's worth it. The game is maybe people who are used to Call of Duty and Warzone and Fortnite and everything. But no, Doom is so interesting because, again, like Super Mario Brothers or Pac-Man, it is playing with a perfectly, or Tetris, it is playing with a perfectly set of variables that have never really gotten better from what it is. Even the newer Doom reboots have to go back to a lot of the design aesthetics of the original Doom because they just kind of did it right the first time. Well, no, I guess that's not the first time. This was technically the follow-up to Wolfenstein, right?
Yeah.
But no, as far as Doom goes, and I'm not trying to be nostalgic here, Doom remains a really fun, playable product. And 30 years doesn't feel like it.
There you go.
And then sometimes it does.
So we'll include a link to that in the show notes, and also here on the sidebar, it looks like they also had Q Doom, which is Doom for Quake, so you could play Doom on the new Quake.
Oh,
so there you go.
Can I say something? When Doom came out, I didn't have a computer. Right, it was 1993. I couldn't afford one.
Uh-huh.
The first time I actually ever played Doom, like really played Doom, was on my Sega Genesis. It was on my Sega Genesis. Now, this is how bad it was. It was something called the 32X, which was an attachment. And then these programming maestros made a version that was actually decent on the... This is going to blow your mind. They actually made a playable version of this game on the Super Nintendo, which is wild. And you know what the craziest thing was?
What's that?
You could actually play Doom on the Super Nintendo online. There was an attachment called X-Band. Like this is how wild things were in the 90s. Like you could buy a modem for the Super Nintendo, play Doom on the Super Nintendo online. Like was it the best version? It was not. But I'll tell you this, the best version of Doom I ever played until the modern stuff was actually the PlayStation version, like the original PlayStation version. And that's when I knew the PlayStation was going to be something. And I loved Doom on the PlayStation. I loved it. Never had any more fun.
It was a product by Catapult Entertainment in Cupertino, California. It is the only modem released in America to have been officially licensed by Nintendo. So fun story there.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. And you could play Mario Kart, Street Fighter, all kinds of stuff. I have a lot of friends that I still have to this day because of X-Band.
Very, very cool.
But we're talking 1994.
Yes.
So this is a long time ago.
Yeah, just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to move on to, we have one more story that we're going to combine two stories with, and then we're going to talk about movie time real quick. So let's talk about, and you had some reservations about this. Well, not really. I'm sorry. I've never seen Nathan have a reservation in my life. He explained this to me before the program, but let's talk about the Insomniac Games hack and really just more like the what about more so than anything else. So please.
Yeah. I mean, when I say reservations, is that this is an ongoing thing. What happened to Insomniac Games was tragic. It was obviously not a very good Christmas present for these people. I believe it wasn't Insomniac is purchased by Sony, right? Are they owned by Sony now?
Let's see. Who owns? And I want to say yes.
I think they might be.
Insomniac is
yes, acquired by Sony Entertainment. Okay. Wonderful developer, one of my favorite modern developers. They do very good work. I don't think they've ever really had a stinker. They provide a lot of fun for a lot of people. The problem is that owned by Sony, they now have different requirements, which is they have to make really big budget games. And the bigger budget game you have, the more people are going to be working on it. And the more people you have working on it, the better the chance that there's going to be holes. And this is what happened. I have no evidence of this. I'm completely conjecturing 100%. But given the time frame of when this game was made, given the time this was happening, the hack probably happened sometime during the creation of Spider-Man 2 or the Marvel stuff. That I imagine, I'm not a hacker guy. I'm again, if I'm BSing, but obviously someone got in. And they were able to siphon off all this data, lots and lots of data, and leak it out. It's very embarrassing. Playable build, I think, of the Wolverine game came out. People are criticizing it. All kinds of stuff. And so, it can't be good for them. But as I said before, though, I don't know if they're going to lose any money off it because this is stuff that wasn't commercially viable anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just embarrassing. A lot of it's proprietary information. And we've had so many hacks in the last couple of years of video game companies, most famously the Grand Theft Auto 6 hack, which had a tragic follow-up story that you sent me. But these aren't games that are being released. This is not like Grand Theft Auto 6. The game was not released and they lost billions. That's not the case.
What and I think even if the game files that you could compile it into a finished video game and people could release it, I feel like even pirated games aren't really that attractive anymore because first of all, there's online support, there's bug fixes, stuff like that. Second of all, like I think people know that they can just get the game. They don't really have. I'm not saying that everyone can drop, 70, 80, 90, $100 on a whim, but if a game is worth it, it's going to have an audience and people are going to pay, to play it online with their friends and stuff like that, which normally you can't do. But for this and for everything that Insomniac kind of released, just to give a little bit of detail, they had the game files and they put it up for sale for $2 million. And like you said, really nothing in these game files was worth $2 million. Like, you can maybe say that maybe Insomniac would have paid $2 million to not have it released. But these hackers have shown before that even if you pay them the $2 million, they're probably still going to release it. It doesn't really matter. They're going to be like, oh, I meant 5 million. Oh, I meant 10 million. And then they're going to release it anyways. So I think Insomniac handled this the best that they could by, again, simply ignoring it. And what these hackers did, they're looking at investment. They're looking at these companies that put in all this money, time, energy, effort. And, again, from this leak, we learned that Spider-Man 2 had a $300 million budget, which is like, a Marvel movie kind of budget, which, as I said, before the show, sounds like Hollywood accounting to me, but who knows?
It could be. I mean, that's what's going to happen because the games, the way they're making these games is like a Hollywood movie. They're using a lot of the same materials, the same everything, and that's not even close to what like Grand Theft Auto 6 is rumored to be like $2 billion to make that game. That's crazy.
The fans deserve nothing less, by the way. They have put in billions of dollars into GTA Online. Good that they're actually reinvesting that money into a game. So,
well, I mean, they deserve. I mean, here's the thing: people, and another. Again, I'm not going to read the leaky stuff. None of it is surprising to me. None of it. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're gonna. There's plans to like they say they're going to chop a game up into 3 parts. Yeah, they've been doing that for 15 years. Okay, yeah. Episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. It happens. But at the end of the day, if your game is good, and people want to play it, people will play it. That's what happens. It just happens. In fact, it's the old argument about piracy, and I'm not advocating piracy. I'm not at all. Please support the product you like. If you like the book, buy it. If you like the music, buy it. But you don't know if you like it until you experience it. And so the idea that nowadays you can't rent video games, it's really hard to get demos. Like demos are almost non-existent. Like in some ways, the only way people can actually experience a game is to pirate it first. And what's happening is we're noticing is that whenever you have something that's heavily pirated, it's also heavily sold. Like there is a correlation between piracy and success. Like it's a fallacy to say that piracy reduces sales. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It increases exposure. That's not advocating piracy. If I were game developers, I would make it easier for people to play your games, release demos, release something. You have cloud gaming. Let people cloud stream it. Let them try. But the fact of the matter is that Marvel Spider-Man 2 cost $300 million. WTF? But where's the money go?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, the game's fine. The game sold a lot. The game. I believe the game is going to make more money than any of the Marvel films in the last couple of years. Like this has not been a very good year for Marvel movies, except for Guardians of the Galaxy. But no, this is the future of video games. You want these big, expensive games that take 50, 60 hours with stunning graphics. They're going to cost a lot of money, and you're going to pay for it. Yep. That's what's going to happen.
Yep. And if nothing else, it usually takes a hack like this to really spur the industry. I was just reading some of the nature of the information that was leaked, and I just want to highlight, like Nathan, they leaked developers' T-shirt sizes. They had scanned passports. They had, personal information. Not not even about the latest Wolverine or Spider-Man or whatever.
Exactly.
It's like
personal stuff.
Yeah, of the employees. And it takes a hack like this to really show the industry that, you can't keep all of your information in one place because it will get found and it will get...
There's literally... Yeah. Look, the cliche is literally don't put all your eggs in one basket. But
the security term is silo your information. Make sure only the people who need the information get access to it. Well, this is bad.
If you've watched any science fiction movie in the last 60 years, there's always that cliched scene of the guy going through the scanning the eyes, doing the thumbprint, going inside the extra room. He's got to do remember the show Get Smart? for the remember the like he would have all these different things. Like that's video games now. You got to be Fort Knox. You got to have siloed information on every level because you don't want hackers getting in. If they do, let them you know what? Have a false flag. Put a treasure trove of fake stuff. Let them steal the fake stuff. You know, it reminds me of in San Francisco, they were telling people to put like fake bags of garbage in their car, so the thieves wouldn't break the windows. Yeah, have a fake game. Call it Spider-Man meets Barbie or something, and then let them take it.
This is why security researchers are going to have jobs forever, is because you know, hacks like this. Like I don't know. They haven't really said how it happened, which I'm sure there's going to be lawsuits, and we're going to find out everything about the hack and how it happened. Most of these hacks are usually someone forgot to set a password, or someone set the password
or left
as admin.
or left a USB key in a coffee shop. Or something.
Or went into the lobby and dropped a USB, a thumb drive, and someone plugged it into a system computer. Like, it doesn't take much for this kind of stuff to happen. So the industry needs to do better. Not just Insomniac, I'm sure everyone, but it really, really sucks that this happened to Insomniac.
Well, it also happened to Sony, and this is one thing we have to say. Like, Sony has been notoriously hacked many times.
Yes,
like they've had their PSN famously attacked. They had to change their legislative wording so you couldn't sue them. You've had Sony pictures get hacked, embarrassing. Like, this is a problem that seems to not unique to Sony, but it seems to kind of happen a lot, which makes me wonder if they're more of a target than anything else.
Yeah,
but it does, like, no other mainstream company has been as embarrassingly hacked as Sony. Can I say that? Like, it's pretty sad. I don't think they deserve it though. Like, there are a lot of other companies I'd like to see taken.
If there was a reason, if there's a reason I would kind of give it to Sony, is that I think they do a lot of contract work. Like they'll ship animation, finishing. They'll do lighting, music, whatever, with third party companies instead of employing them in house. Which, say what you want about either Bethesda, say what you want about Rockstar, say what you want about Blizzard, say what you want about any of these. A lot of what they do is done in house, and I don't think Sony does that. So that's why they get hacked a lot more. It's just what I think. So
no, I agree. Like, Sony's more of a umbrella than a studio.
Yes.
So
there you go. Okay, so there's a story, and actually, Nathan, I was just thinking about the other story about the Lapsus hacker. We're gonna skip that. What happened with him?
That's a sad thing.
Yeah. We're gonna skip that. So we're gonna move on to another sad thing, and we're gonna talk about Tim Allen. So
yeah.
What is this latest podcast you have? You brought some Christmas cheer to your site.
Yeah, it's not quite the institution that the Halloween stuff is, but my coworker, colleague Ethan Brehm and I have a semi-regular podcast called Movie Time, where we talk about movies because we're both movie fans. And believe it or not, actually, like I said, I know a lot about games, but I know a lot about movies too. And sometimes I just don't want to talk about games. So, but we talk about movies, and we sort of switch off who picks what. And on Christmas, this is our second time we've had a Christmas theme episode. Ironically, both about Santa Clauses. This one, two films. One you probably definitely absolutely heard about. The other one you probably never heard about. The first one was,
I have not heard about Christmas Evil. No.
Exactly. See, this is the whole point.
Yeah.
No, so basically, what's the tagline? About two very different movies about men becoming Santa Claus. And the Santa Claus, 1994, starring Tim Allen, very famous, very, very famous now. There's still a hit show on Disney Plus. It's in season 2. Like, go figure. It's a media juggernaut. It makes a lot of money. This was Tim Allen's first big breakout role before Toy Story. And you've seen it? Have you seen the Santa Claus?
Yes.
Yeah, very famous. He gets cursed.
The slow transition to Santa is just perfect. It's a hilarious. Yeah.
We call it if like we were telling Ethan, if you just tweak this movie a little bit, it becomes a horror movie.
Yeah.
It won't take much.
It could have gone the Gremlin route where, under certain circumstances you turn into essentially werewolf-esque Santa, but no, they went the slow transition, and it's very funny. It's good.
So it's one of Ethan's favorite films. I wouldn't go quite that far for myself, but I understand the appeal, and I understand why it's very popular. The other movie was a joy to learn because I had never heard of this movie either. It was called Christmas Evil, a movie that is failed on a lot of levels. One, because it was miscategorized. It's not a slasher movie. It's not a serial killer movie. It's none of those things. There are, by the way, there's a whole cottage industry of killer Santa movies, tons of them.
There was one that came out last year that my friends actually, I didn't see it. What was it?
Violent Night.
Violent Night. Yeah, Violent Nights. Yes, that's it.
The one with David Harbour. The one.
Yes.
The backstory is that Santa was basically a ancient like Northman, like Viking. It's silly. It's basically Die Hard. Can I say that? It's basically Die Hard with
So
Santa.
you're saying that there's more than just those two movies?
But the reason I do want to recommend Christmas Evil for age-appropriate audiences is because this movie is much more like Taxi Driver than anything else. It's about a man who, is traumatized as a young boy, and he just flips. And over time, you see him become Santa Claus. But the way he does it, he kills people. And it's psychological. And like Ethan and I didn't even think about it till we watched it, but there's a scene in the film that was ripped off in the movie Joker, the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, where you see him like becoming Santa Claus via the mirrors. And the movie's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It sounds really good. It was really hard to find. It's available now. But if you're into something different, if you're into a psychological drama that's really messed up, then
really
Merry
get
Christmas.
you in that holiday spirit. Yeah, I got it.
But it's interesting though. It's like I said, it's an actual film. Can I say that? An actual, like, not as good as Taxi Driver, of course, but it's not bad.
There you go. So with that being said, and of course, there's not just that, but a lot more. If you scroll through, looks like Ethan Brem also with the podcast did Dashing Through the Snow. You of course have Dawn of the Nugget. You have product reviews. you got a little bit of everything on Popzara.
It's a lot right now. So
yeah.
It's a lot. I like it.
You guys are having fun. So Nathan, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and just hey, doing the headlines with me, just talking. And this, I believe this will be the last show of the year. So to everyone out there listening, don't worry. Last show of the year just means January 2nd. We'll be back with more Computer America. So don't get too nostalgic for us. With that being said, Nathan, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and wrapping up Computer America for 2023 here with us as well. So everyone out there, absolutely, everyone out there, thank you so much. Check out the show notes, check out the website, keep in touch because CES is right around the corner. It's always a fun time. Until then, have a great day. Thank you so much. Have a great season, everyone. Be good, be safe.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
Catch you next time. Bye bye.